Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Larry's Trackside Teaser, and I am Trackside Larry. Whether you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify, I would appreciate a follow, a like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you need to do. You can even share it if you want to. Some of you may have heard last week, and once again, as you can see this week, I am late on pretty much all my videos this week as I was last week because I was at Las Vegas Motor Speedway week before in Phoenix Raceway, but I am not going to a race for quite a while, so we're going to be back on schedule with these videos next week. Whether you're listening on Spotify to the podcast form of these videos or you're on YouTube, where there is a lot more content available on YouTube compared to Spotify, where I only do these sort of episodes. But we do have Darlington Raceway this week, and that is our discussion for this week on Larry's Trackside Teaser is Darlington Raceway weekend, and we're going to preview the event a little bit. You're probably listening to this on the same day of the truck race or maybe even after the truck race. Like I said, very late on everything this week, and I do apologize for that, but had to actually work my real job. I don't make any money on any of this stuff yet, so here I am now. But let's preview Darlington Raceway. I am going to give my thoughts on Darlington Raceway. There is going to be some massive tire fall off, what I'm hearing as well, for the Goodyear 400 of all races, which I think is pretty interesting. And I'm going to be talking about all of that. But first, of course, I want to go through the power rankings, then the weekend schedule, and the weekend facts. All right, here's this week's update on my NASCAR power rankings. Of course, no changes to the Craftsman Truck Series as we didn't have a race once again this week, but do expect changes next week after Darlington. At the O'Reilly Series, kept Jesse Love, Creed, and Allgaier 1, 2, 3. Jesse Love, all these results obviously are over the last 3 races if you are looking at the graphic. If not, Jesse Love, no wins yet, but a 4.0 average finish over the last 3 races. He's been phenomenal all year. Sheldon Creed with the 6 flat average finish over the last 3 races. Justin Allgaier, of course, got that win at Phoenix, has a 4.33 average finish. Sammy Smith has been surprising, and he moved up from off the list to 4th with a 4.66 average finish. And Corey Day is doing phenomenal, but unfortunately I did have to move him back to 5th with a 7.33 average finish. And then we look over at the NASCAR Cup Series. I still have Tyler Reddick at number 1, just barely. He has that 1 win over the last 3 races, and of course that came at Coda. He has a 7.33 average finish. Christopher Bell with a 3. He has a third place position average finish over the last 3 races, but he doesn't have a win. I have him at 2nd place. Right on his tail is Denny Hamlin, who of course won at Las Vegas with a 5.33 average finish. And then Bubba Wallace continues his fantastic start to the year. Worst finish, 11th every other race in the top 10, has an 8.66 average finish. And then of course Ryan Blaney had his win at Phoenix, but not a great run this week. I moved him from 2nd all the way down to 5th. I moved Bubba down to 3rd, and I moved Bell and Hamlin up to 2nd and 3rd. Blaney has the 1 win, of course, like I said, at Phoenix, and the 8.33 average finish. All right, now that we went through the weekend power rankings, my updated power rankings post Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and the Truck Series ones obviously haven't been updated for a couple weeks because the Truck Series haven't been racing the last couple of weeks. So you'll get an update on the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Truck Series next week on Larry's Trackside Teaser post Darlington Raceway. But now that we are done with those power rankings, let's move on to the schedule and the facts for Darlington Raceway weekend. The weekend schedule, 3:30 p.m. on Friday, March 20th. So that's today, probably when you're listening to this. Craftsman Truck Series practice on Fox Sports 2, immediately followed by Craftsman Truck Series qualifying also on Fox Sports 2. All these times, by the way, are Eastern time. And then at 7:30 p.m., we have the Buckle Up South Carolina 200, the Truck Series race on Fox Sports 1. And then we move over to Saturday, where at noon we have O'Reilly Series practice, immediately followed by O'Reilly Series qualifying on the CW app. Then at 2:30 p.m., we have Cup Series practice, immediately followed by Cup Series qualifying on Prime Video. And then at 5:30, we have the Sports Clips Haircuts VFW Help a Hero 200 on the CW. That is the O'Reilly Series race. And then, of course, on Sunday, March 22nd at 3 p.m. on Fox Sports 1 at Darlington Raceway, we have the Goodyear 400, the Cup Series race. Should be a barn burner is what I'm thinking. Then immediately over to the weekend facts. It is the Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway. The stages end on lap 90, 185, and it's a 293 lap event for the Cup Series. The track is, of course, located in Darlington, South Carolina, and it's a 1.3 mile speedway. The track opened up back in 1950. The first race was in that same year. It's on September 4th. The first Cup Series winner was Johnny Mantz, and the active win leader is Denny Hamlin with 5 wins. Last year's winner in this event, the spring race, was Denny Hamlin, and then last year's Southern 500 champion was Chase Briscoe. And then the notable entries for this weekend, the trucks keep on doing really well when it comes to getting some of these notable entries. You have William Sawalich in the number 1 for Tricon Garage. In the number 5, we have Corey Heim, also for Tricon Garage. And then in the number 7 for Spire Motorsports, we have Connor Mozak. And then in the number 10, replacing the suspended Daniel Dye, is AJ Allmendinger. And then in the Colleague Ram Racing All-Star car, I guess you could say, Corey LaJoie having another start for the race team. And then in the number 45, we have Ross Chastain. In the number 62, we have C. Bell, Christopher Bell. And then in the number 77, we have Carson Hocevar. And then the O'Reilly Series, Chastain and Bell are pulling triple duty, as we have Chastain in the number 9 and Christopher Bell in the 19. And then Kyle Larson is replacing the injured, I guess, the vertigo-illed Alex Bowman in the number 88. I'm hoping Alex Bowman could come back very soon. And then in the Cup Series, also, Alex Bowman's replacement for the second straight week will be Justin Allgaier. And then in the number 66, we have the return of Timmy Hill. And then the weekend weather report, Friday night, so tonight for the Truck Series race, is going to be pretty cool. I'm thinking around 60-something race time. Not really any chance of rain throughout the whole entire weekend. Saturday will be a bit warmer. Around race time should be around 80 degrees, high 70s potentially. And then on Sunday, it's going to be hot and humid. I'm expecting mid to high 80s, maybe even get up to 90 on Sunday. That's going to be a very difficult race for these drivers when it comes to dealing with the heat and the massive humidity at Darlington Raceway. All right, now that we've gone through all of that, the weekend facts, the schedule, and then, of course, the power rankings post Las Vegas, let's get into really discussing Darlington Raceway and what to really expect from this weekend. Of course, my weekend favorites, and then my actual weekend picks for the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Series, and, of course, the NASCAR Cup Series. First, I'll kind of give my overall thoughts of Darlington Raceway. I love Darlington Raceway. I went last year for the fall race, the Southern 500. I camped there. It was a great experience. I love the infield there. The fans there and the campers there are very cool, very nice. And also just walking around there, you can just kind of feel the history, because obviously it's not the most modernized facility. It doesn't have like the best Wi-Fi or the best bathrooms or anything like that. But if you are a fan of like history, especially like motorsports history, and you're just a diehard NASCAR fan like me, walking around Darlington Raceway was just phenomenal. And that's even before even getting to the racing, because there's not a single racing product on the schedule that's like Darlington. Darlington's a completely different beast. It's the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. It's such a difficult racetrack for these drivers. So I think I just think that track is just fantastic. There's so much nostalgia. at that racetrack, so much history at that racetrack. There's been so many phenomenal moments in our sport and phenomenal drivers that have won at that racetrack over the number of years. And you just kind of feel it walking around there. It's a great racetrack, a great environment. Everybody's very cool there. Like it's a great experience. If you're able to go to Darlington Raceway, do it. It wasn't necessarily at the top of my bucket list, but it was somewhat near the top, and I had a great opportunity to go with some friends and really have a opportunity to go there and have a great time, and I did, and I can't recommend it more to anyone. And also, if you obviously go there and you're across the country, go through Charlotte as well, because Charlotte isn't all that far away, and visit some race shops. It was a great experience at Darlington Raceway, but the racing is just phenomenal at Darlington. I love Darlington Raceway. It puts on a very different product. It's really all about just running the wall. The right side of these cars are going to be torn up by the end of this thing. And I just love the racing there. We always have these great finishes. We have a lot of accidents as well. There's a lot of hurt feelings at the end of this thing, a lot of hurt race cars. And one thing that's also going to be really hurt in this race is those tires, because I've heard all about the tires the last couple of weeks. These tires are going to have extensive fall off. They're going to fall off the bone. We're going to potentially see 4 seconds of fall off is what I've been hearing. We're potentially going to have something like we had at Bristol in the spring a couple years ago, maybe even that on steroids potentially, which I'm honestly a fan of, because I like these drivers being able to save their tires, and it's going to really show who is the best at saving their tires, which setup is the best for the longer run. And that's going to be key for this event. It's going to be a lot of comers and goers, because at times you're going to see some drivers just fly past everybody because they're not saving their tires at the beginning of the run. And they're going to pass like 15 or 20 cars, and then after a couple of laps, they might lose all those spots. I love when we have a lot of tire fall off. That spring race we had at Bristol a couple years ago where it shredded like it's a cheese grater. That's probably my favorite NASCAR race in this generation of car, I would say. I would really have to think about it, so don't quote me on that per se. I would really have to think about it, but I would guarantee it's in my top 10, in probably my top 5. Like I said, it might be my favorite. I would really have to make a list about that, but I like it when we see a lot of tire fall off, which kind of leads me to some of my favorites, I would say. And Denny Hamlin's the first one that comes to mind. The guy has won here 5 times. He's really great at saving his tires. He's probably one of the best at saving his tires, one of the best long-run drivers, I would say, in our sport. Brad Keselowski is another driver that comes to mind. He won here 2 years ago, and he's also a great driver at saving his tires as well. William Byron, I would say, overall is a pretty patient driver and is very good at this racetrack. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, I would put in that same boat as just a very patient driver, good at saving their tires. Kyle Larson, that's a driver I'm really going to be watching out for. I don't know. Obviously, he's going to have great speed because he's Kyle Larson. I just don't know how well, if we're gonna have the tire situation that we're gonna have. That's one driver I'm very curious will be how good is he going to be at saving his tires. A couple of dark horses I really feel in this race, because we have the tire saving. This might sound crazy. To some of y'all. But how about Shane Van Gisbergen? Obviously, he didn't have a great race at Las Vegas, but what he's able to do with going as hard as he can at these road courses and saving as much tire, like he doesn't really have a lot of fall off compared to these other drivers, because of pretty much his driving style. What if he's able? I don't think he's going to win, but I can see Shane Van Gisbergen getting a top 10, maybe even a top 5, purely just because of how great he is with the tires. Eric Jones, that's a great underdog as well. Eric Jones has won here twice now, I think. He's great at Darlington. He's always a good pick at Darlington. And honestly, Legacy look a little bit better so far this year, at least compared to last year. But that doesn't really say much. Legacy Motor Club were pretty awful last year, and I think they have taken a little bit of a step up this year, but I do want to watch a little more to make sure on that. But I think they have taken a step up, and I can see Eric Jones being a great underdog, not just for a top 5, but I can see him winning the race. He's won here twice, and he just always seems to figure it out. Carson Hocevar at this point, he's a driver to really watch out for. any place, any time, because he's one of the most talented young guys right now. And then Ty Gibbs, I'm worried about with both Ty Gibbs and Carson Hocevar probably in this same category is I don't know if they could really save tire like a lot of these other guys, because they go quite a bit harder than a lot of these other guys. And I don't think their racing IQ is quite as high as a lot of these other guys, but they are raw speed. They are really fast, and both of them are really close to getting their first win. But if they're able to figure out the tire game, they might have something on Sunday, and one of those drivers might get their first win. I wouldn't be all that surprised. All right, now that I've gone through all of that, it's time to make my weekend picks. Who do I think is going to win the Craftsman Truck Series race, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, and, of course, the NASCAR Cup Series? This was honestly one of the more easier decisions for me. The Craftsman Truck Series, I'm going to have to say Corey Heim, driver of the number 5 for Tricon Garage this week. He's back with his race team, racing another race this season. He's racing a couple of races for Tricon this season, and he's going to be my pick to win the Truck Series race. I felt like that was a very easy pick for me personally. And then I look over at the O'Reilly Series, and I thought that got a little bit more difficult, but Sheldon Creed, he's came very close to winning this race many times, and he's never quite looked as good as he does right now. He's going to be my pick to win the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. And then, of course, in the NASCAR Cup Series, I'm going to have Chase Briscoe actually take the dub once again at Darlington Raceway. It just seems like probably his best racetrack would be Darlington Raceway. Briscoe's had already 2 wins at the racetrack. All right, now that I'm done with my weekend picks, that'll actually do it for this week's edition of Larry's Trackside Teaser for Darlington Raceway weekend. Anything that I talked about here today, leave it in the comments. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and then tune in for next week's Larry's Trackside Teaser as NASCAR heads to Martinsville Speedway. But for now, I'm Trackside Larry saying peace.